he first opened the temple, reopened the temple. He gathered priests, Levites, and commanded them to consecrate themselves for service. And he in the temple and to purify it and restore for the sacrifices. Hezekiah eliminated false worship. He removed altars from Jerusalem, and he had restoration brought forth. And throughout all Judea, and wrought that he was a good and right and truth, and right in the truth of the house of God, and in the law, and in the commandment to seek his God. He did it with all his heart and purpose. And so it seems right that God would continuously bless Hezekiah for his devotion. And so when the Assyrians come, as we look into that, they were told to destroy or eliminate 10 nations of God. And he decided to move on and destroy more, and that's what got him in trouble. He didn't, him himself, the Assyrians, didn't do what they didn't stop when they were supposed to. And so this is when we find out that Hezekiah was truly listening to God and doing the things they're supposed to, because God took care of them, and he experienced when they were trying to take over, that they proved that God is our refuge and strength and very present help and in trouble. And so we get into the I already read it. Yeah, well, I already read the lesson. Big idea. All right, so the truth about God. God will help us fight our battles. Or he will fight for us. And when we have in a contest or a struggle, or we're in a conflict, or in the struggle of conflict for controlling of your spiritual being. And that's what the Assyrians were trying to get them to go back to the old ways that they were doing before and not trust and follow God. So in the focus verse, we find in Psalms 46:1. If you got any questions, if I can help you, if anything I might know, I don't know, just ask. Stop. I'll say, okay. The focus verse, Psalms 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And so we find out here that God is three things. God is three things to his people. This was supposedly written during the siege of Jerusalem by Centurion, and it is the picture of a successful defense. So we know that in Psalms 46:1-3. Let me read it, get here. I'm jumping from three different things here. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling, Shalom. And so we always find out that was a biblical language of God as a refuge, a common image throughout the Psalm. We find Psalms 46 is unique because of the claim of immediate divine aid in times of trouble. And God is not just a help, he is a very present, immediate help in trouble. God heard and responded quickly to Jerusalem's distress and cry, revealing he is a living, active God, able and willing to miraculously intervene, unlike the other gods of the ancient Near East, who are pictured as living away from their worshipers, as dwelling among people in Jerusalem. And so we know these idols and all this, man, they couldn't do nothing for you. So we find that in day one, we find that we find that that the earth would be removed. If the earth had been removed, or mountains carried away into the sea, or waters roared and be troubled, or mountains shake by and by an earthquake, that God was still there to help them because God was the refuge. And it's more or less probably even more so in even in all time. He's going to be your refuge if you stay with him for until the end time. Let's face it. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Day 2. Psalm 46, 4 through 7. And so we're going to find out in this that there's a river of unfulfilled prophecies in this. We find that the rivers flow out of the sanctuary of the temple when Christ comes to reign. And one thing I seen in the Shalah, I found out one thing. I was trying to find out what that really meant, but they said there's no factual meaning. And so it was a doing of the creation. So I really couldn't find out what it really meant, but I know people say things of what Shalah really means. But anyway, Psalm 46, 4 through 7, there is a river. The streams thereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. And so then we know that's talking probably within the 1,000-year reign of Christ is what I kind of picked up that it meant. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. So the biblical insight describes the undoing of creation through the roaring oceans, shaking mountains, yet Zion stands unmoved because of the presence of God within her, nurtured by a placid river. Well, this is a literal reference to the diverted water source Hezekiah and his men engineered in 2 Chronicles 32 and 4. It contains allusions from under the door of Ezekiel's temple. And even here, the rivers that sustain Zion may be referencing the temple, which symbolizes God's presence among his people. You got to dig in so much, and you gotta, like I say, this is like a big overview of what's going on. So you got to go into the Bible and study even more so what's going on, what it's talking about there, to get an understanding of what these little scriptures are saying.
And, hey, Hal.
Yes.
Just to add reference, and I'm not sure, I always thought Selah meant to pause to think about what was just said. That's what I was always taught, and I've looked up the meaning, and it says it's just a break. Just want you to just stop and think of what was just said prior. So that's what I was always thought Selah meant.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I couldn't find anything on what it meant, so. But, I'm not gonna argue that. It's a pause, make you think, yeah. And you're probably dead right, but the only thing it said that there were so many different people had different ideas and never brought up anything of what anybody had said. So thank you, Shalom. Okay. Anybody else? That's what this is for. All right. Day 3. And like I said before, and I'll stress because of the narrowness of what it speaks about and says, we have to jump into the scriptures, the before and the after, and find out what these things are really saying. And in anything that we come up on, you got anything or you got anything that you want, then just write it down and let's discuss it. You know, and we'll jump in the Bible and go over the stuff even more. We don't have to finish these. You know, it's all about learning something. Okay. Psalm 46, 8 through 11. Come, behold the works of the Lord. What desolation he had made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. But still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted on the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. And we know that when the king of Assyria comes upon them, we know that this is about that, you know, what I did before in the beginning. It must be talking about Satan's fall to what's going to happen in the end during Armageddon and all, or the fall of Satan in the ultimate end. God is in control, but we have to continuously seek God's face so we don't get caught up in the midst of all the stuff that's going on. The biblical insight we find on Psalm 46 for the focus on God's status among the nations of the earth, with the call to be still and now that I am God. The final refrain addresses all people. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. This was a choir song by the entire earth, or chorus song rather, by the entire earth, not just the Israelites. The Psalms picks up on the very theme. Oh, clap your hands, all you people, for the Lord of the Most High is awesome. He is a great king over all the earth. Psalm 47, 1 and 2. And so, let me see here. So we did into these things that in this, we're going to find out that there were, in that group of things that you spoke of, there were 3 works of God. He's going to make desolation in the earth. He's going to cause war to cease. He's going to break the weapons of war. God is the ultimate purpose in all the earth. He will send Jesus Christ, his armies of heaven, to take over the world's reign for 1,000 years, and into the earth of all rebellions, he will become all in all. So that is what that's saying, and that's what he's going to be doing, and that's the purpose of those 4 scriptures right there that we read. All right, day 4, Chronicles, 2nd Chronicles 32, 1 through 4. After these things and establishment thereof, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered into Judah and encamped against the fenced cities and thought to win them for himself. And when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib was come, and that he was purposed to fight against Jerusalem, he took counsel with his princes, his mighty men, to stop the waters of the fountain which were without the city. And they did help them. So there was gathered much people together, who stopped all the fountains and the brook that ran through the midst of the land, saying, why should the king of Assyria come and find much water? So that they said, you know, he come up there and he gonna sit around and just lay around for them to die, and watch he come and find much water. Well, they shut it all off. He didn't have no water at all. So that helped, them win that battle also with also the mercies of God. And so in biblical insight, the Centurion Invasion is a critical moment in Judea's history and is a defining event of King Hezekiah's reign. Just over 20 years earlier, the Assyrian army under Shalmaneser had conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, wiping it off the face of the earth. Hezekiah was likely co-regent with his father at that time of the Assyrian invasion, witnessing a havoc firsthand, which probably explained the urgency of his preparation described here. Hezekiah pushed to expand Judean territory, was probably a strategic move to establish a more easily defensible border. We find that 2 Kings and so on. So on day 4 of the 2nd Chronicles, 32-4, the king of Assyria had made war on Judea and already taken 10 tribes of Israel captive. Hezekiah stopped the waters, built the broken wall of Jerusalem, and made another wall outside and towers, repaired the fortress, and he built towers. He repaired the fortress in the city of David, made darts and shields in abundance, set captains of war over the people, and installed faith in his people. And so the king of Assyria, his claim was that he was there to cause war with the house of Judea and not the king Hezekiah. Because he asked a question. And it stated God commanded him to do this. Well, God had told him to come upon the 10 nations of Israel, but he didn't say to go on and do this with Hezekiah. But he didn't stop or he told him to. The king of Assyria told him to stop meddling in God's business, and he was doing what the Lord told him that he was to destroy them, but he didn't. Not yet. It didn't take place. But as you read in the Bible, and you find out more that there's a lot more than what this vaguely lesson tells. So I guess it's up to me and others as you read to find out just the reason why. This is actually set up for Bible scholars, man. People that really, really, really study the Bible and that know. All right. 2 Chronicles 32, 5 and 8. Also, he strengthened himself and built up all the wall that was broken, and raised up the towers and another wall without, and repaired Milo in the city of David, and made darts and shields in abundance. And he set captains of war over the people, and gathered them together to him in the street of the gate of the city, and spake comfortably to them, saying, Be strong and courage, be not afraid, nor dismayed for the king of Assyria, nor for all the multitude that is with him. For there be more with us than with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and to fight our battle. And the people rested themselves upon the words of Hezekiah, king of Judea. So in the biblical insight that we see that in Jordan history, King Hezekiah is one of the handful of reforming kings who leads God's people in a national revival of worship and piety. Others included Jehoshaphat, Joash, and Joshua. However, even this list can be narrowed. Jehoshaphat was marred by his alliance with King Ahab. Joshua's commitment to serve God lasts only as long as the priest Jehoiada was alive. That leaves Hezekiah and Joshua as the two kings of Judah who most followed David's model of kingship. So even though these all did what they did, they didn't continue to follow God themselves. So and I see it's easy to go astray, I guess, in some areas, and for us not to or to lose insight of the direction that we're really going. So we must continuously study, pray, and ask God for his guidance. So we know that in day 5 of Chronicles 32, 5 and 8, he's telling us to be strong and courageous. Be not afraid or dismayed because of what you're going to come up against with a multitude. He was saying there's more of us than them. He has an army of flesh. We have Jehovah. He will help us, or he will help us. God will help us with him because he's got angels and spirit beings that will help fight our battle. Our thing is trust in God, have faith in God, believe in God, have confidence in the God, and stop worrying about everything. Put your faith in God. All right, so we go into the lesson context, and we find out that through this whole thing, the people's courage swelled in the people's hearts as Hezekiah's word had their intended effect. This was not Hezekiah just putting on a bold face, excuse me, in a desperate attempt to stir up some of the people to remain firm. The people could see in Hezekiah's eyes and hear his voice, and that he was certain of what he spoke. At the end of the Chronicle says, and the people rested themselves upon the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah, or as the people took confidence from the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. They placed their confidence in the help from God that Hezekiah proclaimed, and they rested in him. So, as we're going, we can find strength in these promises too, and believe that God will fight for his people and his saving refuge for us. In Romans 15:4, Paul said, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scripture might have hope. He added in Chronicles 10:11, now all these things, never mind. Now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our abomination, upon whom the end of the ages have come. We too can claim these promises. So, like I said before, all we have to do is trust in God, continuously to seek after him, and don't fail. And those promises that were promised beforehand or in the beginning of time are going to go right along until the end time. And so that's one of the promises we have. We've got 10 minutes. All right. Group discussion. Are we ready? Everybody ready? Pens and papers out? Okay. Would you fault Hezekiah for trying to pay off Sennacherib and characterize his action as a lack of faith, or would you be more accurate to characterize it as wisdom and even love for his own people?
I say wisdom and love.
I go along with that. And here's the thing about it. He tried to deal with him in a way, but he was used his wisdom because he's smart about what he did. Because Hezekiah cut off the water supplies outside the city to deny the Assyrians an easy source of water to sustain them during the siege. How long can you fight and battle with no water? Take it from me, in Vietnam, there were times that we had no water. And then, hey, when you start getting thirsty after a day and a half, you're in trouble. And you can't do much, you know? So I say he used his head there. And so while this is all going on, he still continued to fortify the city. He was a smart man. All right. What does Hezekiah's example reveal about the power of one person's faith? Anybody? Anybody? Okay. At one person's faith, when everybody else might be saying, man, we can't do this, or it can't happen. But because the Lord was speaking to this Hezekiah, he spoke to this one man, and therefore through what he spoke to him, he passed it on to other people, and they believed in what he was saying, and therefore it went on. So they said in Chronicles 32:8 said, and the people rested themselves upon the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah, as put it, the people took confidence from the words of Hezekiah, king of Judea. They placed their confidence in the help from God that Hezekiah proclaimed, and they rested in him. Okay, number 3. What is a promise from Scripture that you find yourself repeating as a source of encouragement and strength?
Mine is, if God be for me, who can be against me?
Okay.
Mine is, I can do all things through Christ that
Christ.
strengthens me.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's my other one. And then also I look unto the hills from which cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord.
Who said that?
Me. I got several of them.
Okay. You're right. So we find strength and promise to and believe that God still fights for his people and is saying refuge, saving refuge for us. For whatsoever things are written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through the patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. All right. Now, we're on number 4. How have you found God to be an ever-present help in trouble? Anybody had troubles?
Well, how I'll say, I've heard y'all tell me, y'all have heard me say this before. There was an incident that happened about a year ago on my job where I just was on pins and needles because I didn't know how it was going to play out. I confided something in one of my supervisors, and she decided she was going to speak on my behalf. But when she spoke, she twisted a lot of the words and made it sound a lot worse than what it was. So she went to higher ups that I used to work for and presented this letter, to them of words that I was supposed to say. I'm a grown person. I'll speak for myself. I have no problem speaking up and saying things. And I think that's what I was upset about, is because they know I'm not afraid to speak up and say things. So why were they going to take the word of her? So it was a big blow up. We had a confrontation, but anyhow, I prayed over it before I went in there, because sometimes I can lash out back, and I thought, you know what, Lord, give me the right words to say when I go in here. Give me wisdom, give me guidance. And, he just told me, just be still. So through that whole meeting, while they were lashing out and just hitting hands on the table and throwing fits and stuff like that, at the end of it, I let them all say what they had to say. And I looked at them in their eyes and I said, does that sound like anything I would have said? Does that sound like me? And they didn't have anything to say. And I said, y'all have known me. I've been here 20 some years. I've worked for each of you personally, as your private secretary. So how in the world are you going to take a word of somebody that secondhand? And I didn't even get a copy of the letter. I said, so how are you going to let her speak for me on my behalf? So I told them what was said in the meeting. And they were just like, I said, I've never backed down from things I've said. So my thing is, don't take the word of somebody else. And I walked away from there, calmness, cool. And they have a hard time looking me in the face now, but I'm past it. I have peace about it. I've moved on. The other girl that was involved, she's lost her job. I'm still there. So it's just like God has a way of fighting and speaking up for you, because your life speaks for itself, and so therefore I really didn't have to say much to defend myself, because they knew. So I thought, and I thank God for that, because I could have went in there with the worldly mind to go in there and lash out and be Miss Big Bad and all that and everything, but God just told me to be still. And I sat there and I'd be still. Great, I'm gonna lie, I got emotional. The confrontation got very heated and emotional, but I sat there and I took it. But I think they realized, because as I got emotional, they were like, "Oh my God, this isn't what happened." So they start backtracking and So I thought, yeah, you guys made yourselves look bad, instead of me looking bad. Y'all made yourselves look bad. So I thank God for just giving me the wisdom to just shut up, be still. So.
All right. I like that. Way to go, Shalon. All right. Number 5, we're probably not going to get through this real quick, but how can we still know that he is God, but also in a moment he will walk through the tests and trials of our life? And so that we know that in times with those most faith and with all moments of doubt and almost give away to desire, those dark moments, let the psalmist be with us, with Isaiah,